World. On today's video, we are going to be working once more with the Azure Container Apps, and in this case, we are going to take a look in how to deploy our application using GitHub Flow. So in order to make this happen, as always, we have two options. We can use the Azure portal, or you can use the Azure CLI. On today's video, we will be using the Azure portal because I would like to keep enforcing the usage of managed identities to authenticate against your services. As it is today, the Azure CLI demands you to only use a service principal, so you will need to provide an Azure client ID, a client secret, and the tenant ID, which we would like to avoid when we are working with managed identities and trying to apply the best security. Especially if you take a look into the note at the bottom, it says that the service principal will be living through the Azure portal, so it's not a good idea to create a technical debt. So let's hope the Azure CLI gets updated properly pretty soon so we can specify the managed identity throughout the code. Okay, so go to your Azure Container App, locate the deployment tab under settings. The first thing that you will need to do is to authenticate against your GitHub account. So in my case, I already did that piece. In case you see the sign in option, just follow up the steps. You don't need to provide your account, your password. As always, authorize the connection between Azure and the GitHub repository, and that will be, I'm going to skip that part, it's pretty easy. So what we are going to do now is we are going to be choosing the organization that we would like to work on. In this case will be CloudWorld Tech. And the repository that we are going to be using will be the Azure series. And for the branch that we are going to be working on, it will be master. So once more, we will be choosing the Azure Container Registry that we would like to work on. And this is of course the same that we have been using from the past videos. So we take a sneak peek. So far we have the 3 images that we created from the previous version when we spoke about revisions and how they work. So now what we have to do just to provide the image, and the final step is we need to explain to the Azure portal where our Docker file is located into the repository. So if we go into the repository itself and we locate the Docker file from the web application, you will need only to copy the part where your Docker file is located. In this case, it will be this one. And provide the name of your Docker file, which in my case is just Docker file. Remember that sometimes you might have a different name, so just be wary of that. This is pretty simple. And of course, we will be using for the Azure Access a managed identity. So this managed identity will allow the connectivity within GitHub and the Azure resources. So let's click on the Start Continuous Deployment to finish the configuration. Okay, now that the changes have been completed, we can go to the repository and take a quick sneak peek. One of the first things that we're noticing here is that after the commitment, we have a new folder created that is the GitHub workflows. If we take a sneak peek into this folder, we will see a new YAML file that has been created automatically by these changes that we did in the Azure portal. If we take a look into the YAML file, we will see all the deployment structure that has been created. So we will see, for example, that automatically when we make a change into the repo, this is going to be triggered automatically. And the conditions are using the master branch. We have a couple of paths in the configuration that need to be included, including the YAML file that is going to be used. From here at the bottom, we have a basic configuration of the agent that we would like to use. To build our image. In this case, we will be using a Ubuntu client. It provides a couple of permissions required to make the build. But the most important part, it will be the steps. As you can see, these jobs goes to the Azure portal and authenticates against the Azure portal using the client ID, tenant ID, and the subscription ID that were created together with the steps with the managed identity. As well, we provide the basic information for the container registry in order to be able to connect directly to it. So we have the URL, of course, and the authentication admin in order to connect to the ACR. Pretty simple. So if we go back into the root of the repository, we will see that a build has been completed already. How do you know that? Because as part of the repo, you will see in here a green check, a red mark, or a yellow circle, depending on the status. The green one means that has been completed successfully. The red one it means that it fails, and the yellow one it means that it's actually in progress. So we have one that has been already completed. So let's take a sneak peek into the AD very quickly. So as part of the repository, I made these changes already. I changed the header of the application, and I also changed the text that is part of the paragraph in here to match a new changes, and I committed these changes into the master branch. So With that in hand, let's take a sneak peek to the build. So if we take a look, we can see we have a couple of steps that are part of the YAML that we already saw. So we have a preparation for the job, the authentication into the Azure portal, checking out the code, getting the token access for the registry and everything. From here we have very basic steps. So if we take a sneak peek, this is building the Docker image directly, and it's pushing the image directly into the ACR in different steps. If we take a quick look into some of the commands, we will see that in the back, this is using the AC command, the agent using the AC command to execute the very similar commands that we already use. AC, container app update, and provide the configuration that we would like to be updated after the changes. So once this has been completed, a new image will be sent to the ACR using a build from the agents from the Azure side, and that agent is going to push that image into the ACR. So that is exactly the same thing that we did when we executed the EAC ACR build command into the local environment. But this time everything is happening in GitHub, is being fully automated, and we are using a YAML file to configure everything. If we take a look into the repositories once more and we refresh in here, we will see that we have a new image. It's pretty important to mention that when we build a new image into the Azure portal, the YAML is going to authenticate the image using a GitHub chat. So as you can see, the name of the image is going to be exactly the same that we provided, but it's going to attach a GitHub chat as part of the name. So that's why we end up with an image with this particular name. If we go to the container apps and we take once more a look into the revisions and replicas, we will see that we have a new replica created in here. So as you can see, it's fully online, and the v3 has been passed as an inactive revision. So if we go to the web application, we will see that the changes have been completed successfully. If we go into the IDE and let's say we make a new change in here just to make it visible, and I'm going to push these changes into the master branch. Once I commit these changes into the master branch, a new build will kick up. So let's give it a second until the code push. This should be very quickly. Well, it already happened. Let's go into the repo once more and let's go into the root. So as you can see, we have the yellow icon. Like I mentioned, it means there is a build in progress. If we open up, we will be able to see in real time the different steps that are running throughout the pipeline. So let's wait a minute until this is completed and we will be back to check the revisions. Okay, now the new build has been completed. It usually takes a couple of minutes to complete. We can take a sneak peek once more into the ACR. So once more we have a new image, and if we go to the Azure portal and take a look into the container app, we already have a new version coming in, and the old one is passing to be an inactive revision. If we take a look into the web application, we have the new changes. Okay, so in today's video, we learned how to deploy our changes into an Azure Container App and also into the Azure Container Registry using GitHub and using changes directly into the branch. So as you can see, this is pretty easy, and you can create revisions using this strategy. Remember that you can change or personalize the YAML file as whatever you need to. So for example, if you would like to create a custom revision name or using a different strategy for the naming of your image, that is okay. You can use any strategy available into the YAML file whenever you need to. So I hope you really like this video. So on the next part of the series, we are going to start working with Dapper. We are going to be using the Dapper ecosystem in order to deploy event-driven application, and it's going to be very funny. So let's join me in the next video. Thank you. Have a good one.